WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's April 26th, and I'm Abriana Herman. On today's show, the leader of Indianapolis Public Schools responds after a teacher was accused of filming the alleged abuse of a student by a classmate. A new statewide program designed to help provide meals to children during the summer. And environmental advocates say they're happy with increased regulation on how utilities handle toxic coal ash.
We no longer have to worry about the burden of that ticking time bomb just going off and ultimately seeping in and causing yet another disaster.
Those stories coming up. But first, the new installment of a regular segment called The Checkup from Side Effects Public Media, where the health reporting team explores a single question sparked by a recent news story or maybe by one of our listeners. This time, the team looks into Ozempic, the diabetes drug increasingly being used for weight loss, and the connection it might have with unexpected pregnancies.
Recently, the term Ozempic baby has been cropping up on social media, from TikTok to Facebook to even Reddit. Some women are saying they are getting unexpected pregnancies while on the medication.
Yes, I was taking semaglutide, which is also known as Ozempic, and I got pregnant.
Yeah, so I'm literally the definition of someone who's having an Ozempic baby.
So I'm almost in my third trimester. Everything is gone.
Welcome to The Checkup. I'm Lizzie McGreevy, Community Engagement Specialist at Side Effects Public Media, and our checkup question today is, just what are Ozempic babies? With me to answer this question is Managing Editor Farah Yusri.
Hi, Lizzie.
Hi, Farah. So, like many families, I had the birds and bees conversation with my parents, and they totally left out the part about Ozempic babies. They must have skipped that chapter. So can you please shed some light and tell us what exactly is happening here?
Sure. So, Lizzie, the way Ozempic works is through a process called delayed gastric emptying. So it takes longer for, the food to be absorbed by your body, and that helps people feel fuller for longer. And so they won't reach out to food as often, and that results in weight loss. Now, obesity, diabetes, and insulin resistance are all issues that impact women's fertility and ability to carry a healthy pregnancy. And that's because there are hormones that are stored in the fatty tissue that work against the natural, typical process that helps people get pregnant. So when someone takes Ozempic and addresses these issues, they may find that their fertility struggles have also been resolved, and they find themselves carrying a baby when they did not expect it.
Farah, that makes a lot of sense. But I have also seen posts from women who are taking Ozempic, and they say they got pregnant even though they're on birth control pills. How is that happening?
So birth control pills work in different ways depending on what kind of hormones are in them. So some pills suppress ovulation altogether. Others may make it harder for the sperm to fertilize an egg. And this all depends on if the person takes the pill as directed so that the hormones can do their jobs. Now, Ozempic and the whole delayed gastric emptying process that I talked about can also impact the way medications, including the birth control pill, are absorbed in the body. I spoke with Linda Kassar. She's an associate professor at George Washington University's School of Nursing, and she's worked with OB/GYN patients for over 3 decades. Here's how she explains it.
The levels of the hormone aren't going to be consistent, and those conditions that we're trying to set up to prevent pregnancy might actually occur. Maybe an egg does get released. Maybe the cervical mucus doesn't thicken the way we expect it to, and maybe the wall of the uterus does get a little thicker. So when the hormones from the pills aren't absorbed in those even concentrations in the way we hope, sets up conditions where pregnancy could happen.
So it sounds like some of these Ozempic babies and pregnancies are happening unexpectedly, which I'm guessing means women may be taking the medication for weeks into the pregnancy. What do we know about the safety of these drugs for the pregnant person and for the fetus?
So, lab studies on animals have shown that Ozempic during pregnancy sometimes resulted in pregnancy loss or fetus abnormalities. But it's very hard to ethically design a study where researchers can test the impact of these drugs on the pregnant person and the development of the fetus. So, as of now, there really isn't enough safety information available. We also do not know after the pregnancy if, for example, the medication gets passed on through breastfeeding and what kind of impact this has on the newborn. So, medical experts advise that if someone is planning to get pregnant and they are on Ozempic, they should be off of it for at least 2 months before trying to conceive. Kassar says it has to be planned out.
Not just, oh, I've lost, 35 pounds while I've been taking this medication for my diabetes. I feel healthier now. I'm going to try to get pregnant. There has to be a discussion about what other medication that's doing the job that Ozempic is doing that's been studied a little bit better in human patients. What other thing can we substitute there?
She says there are some other alternatives out there that doctors can talk to you about that could be safer for a pregnant person.
Thank you, Farah. I can now check off Ozempic babies as something I've truly learned about because you can't trust everything you hear on TikTok,
That's why we have the checkup.
Okay, yes. So if you have questions and you don't want to just trust random people on the internet, you can always write into us, and we will try to find experts to answer your questions next time on The Checkup.
That was The Checkup, a segment from Side Effects Public Media. Side Effects is a regional health reporting collaboration of NPR member stations across the Midwest, based here at WFYI. And if you have a question for The Checkup, we'd love to hear it. Whether it's about the complex U.S. healthcare system, something you're usually too embarrassed to ask, or you just want to hear from an expert about a health policy topic, you can send an email to news@wfyi.org. And the leader of Indianapolis Public Schools says the district fell short for not informing parents that a teacher was accused last fall of filming the alleged abuse of a student by a classmate. A video statement from Superintendent Alicia Johnson Wednesday was the first time she spoke publicly about a lawsuit filed by the parent of a second grader. The parent claims a teacher at George Washington Carver School 87 encouraged, instigated, and filmed the physical abuse of their child by other students. Johnson says external review of the district policies will happen.
We will further clarify our guidance for all staff, teachers, and administrators regarding follow-up communication of incidents in schools, which is a place where we fell short in this instance and have regrettably caused some families to question their trust in us.
School 87 parents tell WFYI they are upset they weren't notified about the claims of abuse until media reports last week. An investigation by the Department of Child Services found the teacher jeopardized the overall well-being of students at School 87. To read more of our reporting on this story, you can go to wfyi.org/news. During summers, when school is out and there are no daily school lunches, some Hoosier families face difficulty providing meals for their children. As Indiana Public Broadcasting's Thomas Ollett reports, a new statewide program is giving these families extra state benefits to help.
Called Indiana Sunbucks, eligible families will receive a one-time payment of $120 per school-age child. It's to be used to buy extra groceries that often come with summer vacation. Brad Meadows is the Director for District and Community Engagement at Anderson Community Schools.
So programs like this are essential to making sure that our families do have and our students have food over the summer.
The cards will automatically be sent out to most eligible families in the coming weeks, though the State Department of Education says that some parents will still need to apply. Schools and community sites like Anderson across the state will also host daily or weekly free lunches this summer for kids up to the age of 18. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Thomas Ollett.
And for our final story today, new federal rules from the Environmental Protection Agency will increase regulation of how utilities should handle toxic coal ash waste. As Indiana Public Broadcasting's Violet Cumber-Weiland reports, environmental advocates in Indiana say this will improve the health of Hoosiers, particularly those living around these plants.
The new rule will force utilities to clean up and remediate unlined ponds, landfills, and other areas where they disposed of coal ash. Ashley Williams is the executive director of Just Transition Northwest Indiana, a group pushing for an equitable transition to renewable energy. She says Indiana has more toxic coal ash sites than any other state, and this proper cleanup requirement will improve the lives of Hoosiers.
Our airways are going to be improved. Our waterways, we no longer have to worry about the burden of that ticking time bomb just going off and ultimately seeping in and causing yet another disaster on our Great Lakes watershed.
Prior to this EPA rule, she says coal ash would leak into nearby groundwater, leaving Hoosiers at risk for things such as cancer, heart disease, and asthma. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Violet Comer-Weiland.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Drew Dodlin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Abriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday.